Hello everyone, meeting number 17. Good morning, good evening, good day, wherever you are. Last time we had a problem with the internet, so it the meeting was cut in half. So I'll need to finish and close what we started last time with the question we had during the lesson. Also, there was a question last time on the previous video asking about the difference between religion and Kabbalah. So this is something I might get into later, but basically I'll just say in a sentence or two. Religion is basically an egoistic way of attaining things in life, in this life or the afterlife. So you actually try to get along with an upper force or with different gods or whatever, depends on what religion you're talking about, in order to improve your future, or your destiny, or your well-being now in this life, in this world, or after you die. Kabbalah is completely different. It's about ascending to a different level of perception of reality, of attaining reality. It talks about how you can resemble the upper light and attain it in your life currently, rising above the level in which you live, identifying with your protein body. Okay, so it's something completely different, but again, maybe we'll expand on that later on. Hello to everyone who's joining us. Okay, so last time we were in the middle of explaining again another thing that might be confusing, just like the religion thing. The other thing that could confuse people is when we talk about attaining perfection, or what we call bestowal, or some kind of state in which we feel some kind of I don't know, bliss or fulfillment. So usually in egoistic perception, if I'm lacking a pleasure, okay, let's say this is minus, why is it so thick? Okay, so let's say this is minus. So how do I imagine a state which is complete? So usually we imagine, because we are being operated by a lack, and so most of our pleasures are based on a relief from the lack. Okay, so we eat in order to feel relief of hunger, we have sex in order to have relief from that urge, we I don't know what, we have a pleasure when we take off our shoes after they squeezed our feet all day long, and we feel relieved when we go to sleep if we're tired, etc., etc. Okay, we smoke in order to feel relieved out of the nicotine addiction. So this is the form of pleasure, like in most cases in our life. And that's why when we talk about some kind of eternal state, some kind of future a pleasure, then we imagine a state in which there is no movement, no change. So let's say we'll work 60 years and then we go on pension and we'll sit all day on the beach, or we'll work all year and then we'll go in the summer and I don't know what, not move at all, stay all day at home watching movies and drinking. So in Kabbalah we refer to this as death of the desire, because once you have some kind of pleasure going into your desire, it actually you can say cancel, or yeah, you can say cancel the desire, or just feel it in a way that you don't feel anything anymore. And this is called a state of death. So how can you define, how do you define something that we talk about like eternal pleasure, okay, or a reality in which we feel fulfilled all the time without feeling this death, meaning stop feeling anything? And what I tried to say last time, and I started it, but because the internet went down, it was a problem, that it's very similar to a concept of game in our world, okay? So if you're talking about games, why do we like games so much? Because in games we experience a sensation that in psychology we call it flow. Okay, this is a guy, a professor named Michael Csikszentmihalyi, if I'm not mistaken by his name, and he came up with this concept of flow, which actually means that you have a certain balance in which you don't feel time, you don't feel yourself, you just feel a part of the one with the action you're taking, and you feel that you're experiencing something that, for example, athletes would call being in the zone, or being in, or something like that. So you have this very lively sensation, okay, that you feel actually alive. And in order to attain this flow, so you can look on anything in skill by two axes, one of skill, this is not good, sorry, one of skill, and the other is of challenge, okay? So if you have challenge and you have skill, so if you have more challenge than skill, then you feel frustration. So you'll bang your hand in the wall, something you don't know what to do, you just want to give up and go away. If you feel more skilled, if you have more skill and challenge, then also you'll experience boredom, because there won't be enough challenge, so you won't find any pleasure in that. So you need to be constantly in a state in which you increase the skill and the challenge. So every time you have a new level, more challenge, and you need to improve and learn more by the skill. That's why life of games is actually a life of constant learning, because you all the time need to learn and improve in order to stand up to the challenges, okay? And this is very similar to what we talk about in Kabbalah, that every time you acquire a new uncorrected desire, meaning some kind of intention for yourself, that you reveal how all of your nature is just pulling to oneself, how it actually thinks only about how to maximize pleasure for oneself in minimum effort, and every time you need constantly to change that, meaning to rise above it, above your beastie form of life, of being like an animal, thinks just of itself, and to try to see yourself as part of something bigger, as connected to a higher synergy than yourself. This is usually called a ten, or a group, or the other, or the creator. It doesn't really matter. In Hebrew the word is zulat, which means other, but it also means anything that is other than yourself, okay? So basically it can be in Kabbalah we usually start with other people that study, and through them we attain the creator, which is another type of other, okay? So this is something that we've talked about okay, somebody's writing that I have a problem with the microphone. Let me know if you hear me okay. I don't know, maybe it's a problem with the setup. Anthony, let me know if now it's better. So if you're still experiencing problem with the mic, let me know. So this is what we've talked about last time, about this concept. Okay, now it's better. Okay, good. So this is what we've talked about last time. Today we'll continue. We'll do a short review of the concept of Reshimot, because last time it got cut off. We got cut out in the middle by the internet. Bloopy is asking when we gonna learn how to get into the spiritual realm. Okay, so this is about more practical Kabbalah and how to actually do that. We'll get to that gradually, okay? We'll be coming to that soon. But first we need to finish the general picture of what is Kabbalah, what it talks about, and what do we relate to. Okay? Okay. So, last time, just add this. So far in this series of talks, what we try to talk about is how reality came to be from the moment of creation until the development in our world. And also the book that we're dealing with, Kabbalah for Beginners, that actually if you don't have it, you can download it from the link in the description, places a lot of focus on the process in our world, how it develops until we come to a state in which a person reveals the point in the heart, the desire for spirituality, in which we can start to ascend back to the source, to the creator, okay? Usually most Kabbalist books don't do that. They focus more on how reality came to be from above downwards, but this book does, so we'll go along with it. So if you remember here we talked how from the world of infinity we had the process of 4 phases of direct light in which reality was created, and according to the structure of the 4 phases we had 4 main worlds. We've talked of more, but let's keep it simple as is for now. And these 4 worlds, Atzilut, Bria, Yetzirah, Asiya, are actually levels of concealment of the upper force. Because in Hebrew, again, the word world means olam, comes from alama, from concealment, until the final concealment, which is our world. And also in this book, they actually talked about how in our world we have different levels according to the same structure of still, vegetative, animate, and speaking. And again, as we've said about the ascending, and when we ascend, actually, we don't ascend anywhere. We don't go up in space or I don't know where, or after we die, but we ascend in the levels of consciousness. So we're actually going up in revelation of the Creator in the same process that things came to be. So if, for example, I go to level X, I understand how everything came out of this level. I'll do it here. If I go to level X, so I understand how from level X everything was, everything descended or everything came to be in all the levels below it in order to bring us back to X. And if I go to X plus 1, so it's the same principle. So actually we're just going back in the revelation, reveal how everything, all this world, all of the system is all inside of us, and we're just unfolding it on the path of attaining the upper force, okay? So this is what we've talked about last time. Now we've stopped at page 83. Why don't you see it? Okay, so this is like a... this is going to be a problematic. Okay, we have some kind of problem. Just a second. Okay, something changed in the setup, but I'll come. Okay. So we're on page 83. Okay. So what we've talked about, okay, maybe before the book, I'll just add another thing that we've talked about. We also talked about how all this process is actually a series of states. You can relate to it as states. Each state is some kind of is like a set of conditions between the point of the Creator, which we usually called Keter, to the point of the creature, we usually called Malchut. In between, we have like 8 levels, meaning different compositions between the creature and the creator. So you have like different flavors, frequencies, I don't know how you want to call it, of the combinations of the creature and the creator. And these are called in Kabbalah the 10 Sefirot, okay? So in each state you actually have a different combination, a different setup of conditions of these 10 Sefirot and how the creature and the creator actually relate to one another. And and we've talked about it, and we gave Markov chain as an example, that one of the ways that nature is being efficient in is that it stores information or memory in a very convenient way, in which that all the previous states we can actually have them, I don't know the right word for that, maybe a record. So we can have one record as the result of everything that was, and we have another kind of information about what is currently. And by these two kinds of records, we can actually perform. So you can look on every moment in our life if you want to rise above the classical term of time, and just look on time as a process moving between these states. So if you look on this state as constant, then time is just the movement between states. So in every moment or every point on this axis of time, you actually have two kinds of records. One is what was so far, and the other one is what is now. And according to that, you can actually perform or act. So you have your experience and you have your current state. Okay, and this is how these reshimot or records are being gathered from above downwards, in a way that in every state we get the reshimot, the record of what was so far. So when we go back from below downwards, we're actually realizing this reshimot. Okay, so every time we're like opening up these records that were created from above downwards. That's the basic idea of that, and now we'll read about it. Okay, so these memories are aptly named reshimot, records, and each reshimot stands for a specific spiritual state. Because our spiritual evolution unfolded in a specific order, the reshimot surface within us in just that order. In other words, our future states are already determined, and we are not creating anything new, just remembering and re-experiencing events that already happened to us. The one thing we can determine, which we will discuss at length in the following chapters, is how fast we can climb the ladder. The harder we work at climbing it, the faster these states will change and the faster we will spiritually progress. Okay? This is like a beginning of the opening of a very big issue in Kabbalah, which is about free choice. Okay, so if everything is predetermined and all the states already exist, then what is your free choice? Where is the freedom to act in a specific way? And this actually relates to the pace, meaning how fast or what is the level of acceleration you're actually going through these states. Each reshimot is completed when we have fully experienced it, and like a chain, when one reshimot ends, the next reshimot emerges. The reshimot we are experiencing now, our present reality, is actually an offspring of the reshimot that will appear next. Okay, so it was created from above downwards in a way that when we realize it from below upwards, each next reshimot is the previous one when it descended. But because we are going back up the ladder, the present reshimot is attached to its original creator, its parent reshimot, if you will, and awakens it. Okay, so this is another thing that is interesting, that in Kabbalah we're actually calling the next degree the creator. So let's say that me plus one is the creator compared to me currently. Okay, because I cannot grasp anything, I cannot perceive anything that is greater than the next degree. So for me, all the time, the next degree, the next step is like infinity. It's like the creator. And when I realize myself being resembling to that, being one with that reality, then I reveal the next reshimot, which is like the creator towards me. And this goes on until the end of correction, meaning the highest state from which creation actually began. Thus, we should never expect to end our present state and rest, because when one state ends, it necessarily leads to the next in the line until we complete our correction. Then we will rest in a state of eternal bliss. Okay, this sentence of we will rest in a state of eternal bliss, this is what started actually the explanation about the flow. How all the time this eternal bliss actually is a constant process of growing all the time in endless acceleration, you can say. Our efforts to become altruistic, spiritual bring us closer to our corrected state, because the greater light that we draw awakens the Reshimo more quickly. Okay, so again, this concept of altruism, we've talked about it. It's not that me, the protein body, doing something good to other protein bodies or to the environment or something, but being altruistic is actually changing your perspective that I don't identify my self with the protein body, with a greater synergy. Okay, and I was asked also about in the comments about scientific proofs. I don't know if you can talk about proofs, but in what way does the Kabbalah dealing with nature or reality is similar to a scientific method? So on that we have actually a course. I know that for sure in Hebrew we shortly will have it on air. In English I'm not certain when, but if you register to KabU in the link in the description, probably once the course is out you'll get it. And since those Reshimot are records of higher spiritual experiences, the sensations they create in us are more spiritual too. Okay. When that happens, we begin to vaguely sense the connectedness, unity, and love that exist in that state. Okay, so we just experiencing a higher synergy in nature, much like a distant faint light. Okay, we talked about it that we've talked about it. Sorry, you didn't have the text on screen. That's because of the change of screen. Okay, sorry, my mistake. So we talked about it, how synergy in nature creates a new phenomenon every time. So you have steel molecules connecting, and then you have a phenomenon of life. We have cells in the body connecting, and then you have a level of consciousness. And we've talked about that you have people connecting, and then we have a level of divinity or the creator. Okay. Okay. So now I'll give you the text. Sorry for those who didn't download it. Okay, so the more we try to reach it, the closer we come to it, and the brighter it shines. Moreover, the stronger the light, the stronger is our desire for it. Thus the light builds our kli, our desire for our spirituality. Okay, so the kli, meaning the verse of the desire, and the light grow simultaneously, just like in the diagram of flow I've drawn. Now we also see that the name surrounding light perfectly describes how we sense it. As long as we haven't reached it, we see it as external, attracting us with its blinding promise of bliss. So again, surrounding light is a concept that we've talked about in depth in the last time and the time before. In general, I recommend that if you join this series in this talk, it's very good to go to the playlist on YouTube that you also have a link for in the description, and just go over the previous lessons, because the more we advance, the more it will be harder to catch up with the terminology and also concepts we already clarified. Every time the light builds a big enough kli for us to step to the next level, the next Reshimo comes along and a new desire emerges in us. It always comes in a form of corrupted intention, meaning that first I think of oneself, I think of myself, I look at reality as surrounding myself in a very corporal way, and then I rise to the more connected, altruistic, synergic kind of reality. We don't know why our desires change, because they're always parts of the Reshimo from a higher degree than our current level, even when they don't seem to be. So a lot of times a person finds himself in disorientation, in a new reality, and with experience you'll see that the greater the disorientation, the greater the darkness that seems in the beginning, the higher the state that comes afterwards. So the higher the revelation that one attains if he overcomes that. Just as our present Reshimo surfaced and brought us to our present state, the new desire that approaches come from a new Reshimo, which will produce a new state. At the moment, we call that new Reshimo our future. Okay, so we have a current future Reshimo and what we call previous Reshimo, or our experience. However, in a little while, when that Reshimo has emerged in its fullest, it will be our present, just as our current Reshimo is our present. This is how we continue our climb up the ladder. It is a spiral of Reshimot and ascents that end at the purpose of creation, the root of our souls, when we are equal and united with the Creator. Okay, so why is it a spiral? This is another interesting thing. Because actually when we go up, we don't go in a linear way. We go in a process in which there is like the same pattern repeats itself, but every time on a different layer. Okay, in Kabbalah we call every change, every state that starts, as we've said, from the darkness, from a darkened state, and then you correct it and you attain the light. We call it a day. That's why in Judaism, for example, Kabbalists used a symbol that the day starts from the night before. Okay, so we start from darkness, you correct it, and then every new change, it's called in Hebrew, a new change is called chidush. Like new is chadash, so it's chidush, and it's the same. It's very similar to the word chodesh, okay, which is month. So you have actually a month, which is a new change. And this month creates, a series of this month creates what we call shinui, shana, a year, okay, a change. And every time you have like this sequence of state that repeats itself, but every time on a higher degree, and that's how a person evolves. Of course, that in our world, in the lower level of reality, just like we've talked about root and branches, we have concepts of day, month, year, like in the astronomical level, but these are all just a result of our internal states that we go through. Okay, let's see if we have questions. Wow, we have a lot of questions. Okay, the flow state easy to feel but hadn't. Yes, somebody is commenting about the flow. Yeah, flow is being it's like just like being a professional in anything. It's all about how you balance the skill and the challenge all the time. We usually in the beginning, just like little kids, we don't want the challenge, we just want the candy, and then we get bored. And this is why with all the technological advancement and everything we attain as human beings, we have so many people miserable and empty and going for painkillers or marijuana or anything that will help them not feel themselves or not feel the desire, because we actually we are programmed to try to attain the candy instead of understanding that the true pleasure is in the flow. Is there any research on any of this? Okay, so Adam is asking. Adam, actually, if you know Hebrew, I can actually send you the course once it's ready, so you can email me in a month or just leave a note or whatever, and we'll send it to you in English. I don't know when it will be ready, maybe a bit longer, but there is a lot of research on the concept of synergy and different layers and how nature is actually built of different layers. We've talked also in this course how modern physics relate to reality in a very similar way, and also about other stuff we talked about. Of course that scientists cannot research the Creator in the same way as Kabbalists, because they didn't develop the sense to do that. So they're just lacking this specific sense. So you won't find scientific articles about the Creator, but about the method and the way how we relate to it, and how all these concepts actually happen in the level of our world, in the five senses, and from that you can actually project on what we talked about. How can you be sure about any of it? Well, you can't until you reveal it yourself, so it's like a trial and error, you know. Okay, so somebody's asking here about a trust of a cheating girlfriend or something. Well, this is completely unrelated to the lesson. If we'll do a lesson about male and female and these forces in spirituality and how they come to be in corporality, then maybe we'll answer this question. Okay, so that's it for now. If you have more questions, just feel free to write them down. We'll relate to them next time. And see you next time. Bye for now.